Follow Mare in a journey. I don't know why. Okay. Clear cut as she's thought in Honey, I'm just gonna restart the whole thing from the top. Hi, I'm Dabby, but you can call me Dabz. So today I'm reviewing Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. So this book I read because my friend actually read it first and she recommended it to me. Or she didn't recommend it to me, she just told me that she personally enjoyed it. And it's a dystopian book. I guess there's a little bit of a fantasy sci-fi aspect to it as well, but it's mostly dystopian and it's also very like royalty based. So in this book, main character Mare Barrow lives in a world divided by the color of your blood. Reds are commoners and normal people, and silvers are elites, royals, higher class people with superpowers who relentlessly rule over the reds. Mare, obviously, is a red, and she finds herself one day working at the Silver Palace, where she discovers that she too has powers, even though her blood is thoroughly red. Mare is seen as a threat to silvers, so they hide her as a long-lost silver princess. Mare must be careful not to show her blood or her hatred for the silvers, but she soon discovers that things aren't as perfect and clear-cut as she thought in the silver world. Follow Mare in this journey in a world with reds against silvers. So, I did not love this book. That's crazy. I feel like I never say, like none of my book reviews, none of the books I read I really don't like. But I actually have many reasons for disliking this book. But let's start with something that I did enjoy. The world building of this book, I really enjoyed. I thought it was great. It was the way that the author wrote, explained the world to us. It was very, very easy to understand compared to many other dystopian or fantasy books. Maybe it was because they just didn't go very super in depth with the world and all of it. It didn't throw the world at us. I was able to understand how the world works and the dynamic of it. I also enjoyed the general idea of the story. I thought that the blood, the red versus silver blood, that seemed like a cool idea. And I'm also all for superpowers in stories. I love superpowers. And I think that the royalty aspect of the story, because a lot of it is set in the palace and a lot of the major characters are royalty, I thought the royalty aspect added an interesting view as well. I really like when royalty is added into stories. However, that was about the extent of everything I liked about this book. There's another thing that I'll talk about later, but I felt like the plot of this book was very unoriginal. I know that dystopian books like Hunger Games, Divergent, The Giver, The Selection, there's another book called Red Rising, which I've heard is very similar to this one. I know that dystopian books typically have a lot of similar themes, but this one, it just seemed especially so alike to all the other ones. I was thinking maybe it's because I've read too many dystopian books that they all just kind of seem to jumble together in the storyline. But this book was a typical there is a corrupt group that's in power and there's a poor group. This one person is special, they're the chosen one, and they're different from everyone else. And there's also this resistance group that tries to fight against the corrupt group. That's his basic storyline for all the dystopian books, and this one especially, it's very prominently there. I also felt like the events of the book were really predictable. There are two main plot twists at the end of the book, and I'd already been able to predict them to an extent since the beginning of the book. And I think that part of this is from this book being so similar to so many other dystopian books. Maybe that's the reason I was able to predict it, but I felt like the events were very predictable. Also, the amount of tropes there were in this book. So in this section, I'm gonna list off a couple of the tropes that are present in this book. They're kind of spoilers depending on how you see them. So if you don't want to know what tropes are in this book because you plan to read this book or for whatever reason, skip to here. If not, keep watching through. So in this book, there was the chosen one trope. There was a love triangle, but it was I'm okay with love triangles, but this one was just weird because it included brothers, and like the main character and like this brother have a thing, and the main character and the other brother have a thing, and this seems just complicated and weird. They had like this thing where like the trope of like women hating women, like other women, for some reason. Like there was no reason for Mare to hate this other girl. Like that just seemed weird. There was a little bit of insta love. There was like the I'm not like other girls, like I don't want to be a lady. There was the royalty romance, and also there was like the exact line, let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding in, which if you're like a YA book person, you know why that's a little iffy. But those are the tropes that are in there. And I personally, I like tropes when they're done well, but I just feel like for this book, there was so many and it overloaded you. I also want to talk about the characters because, oh boy. Firstly, our main character, Mare, literally, I do not like her. I hate her. I feel like she never made any good decisions, and I feel like she's basically a carbon copy of any other dystopian female lead. But besides her, and also maybe Cal, which is like one of the major characters, I think that Cal was just a little bit boring. Also, they described Cal's eyes like so many times in the book. Pluto on screen. Back to Cal. Pluto just appeared, made a guest appearance. Cal was a little bit boring. They also described his eyes like so many times. Like, I understand his eyes are pretty. I don't need to keep knowing about it. But besides those two, I really loved all the other characters, especially the secondary characters. I really liked Killorn. I really liked Julian, Lucas. I even enjoyed Evangeline, and I thought that Queen Alara's story and also Mavin's story, that they're fascinating because they were so in depth. Like they had depth to them, the characters, and they had personality, and they had things that made them different, but they were also flawed. And so I ended up really enjoying the characters in this book, actually. Surprising. Back to the things I didn't enjoy. Plot holes. They were an issue to me because I felt like there were a lot of things that didn't really make sense. Maybe I should just make this a book talk because this is another place where I can't explain that much of it without spoiling. So skip again if you don't want spoilers. So the first thing is that all the time that Mare went through training and like fighting against like other silvers for training, you're telling me that she never got cut one time? Like, so a little like droplet of her blood, of her red blood showed. Even against the girl who literally uses metal and knives as her weapon, she didn't get cut a single time. Secondly, why didn't they just kill Mare in the beginning? Because this is a kind of a big spoiler. They killed all of the other Reds that had like powers. So what was the point of not killing her as well? And like I know that people saw her, but like they could have just played it off as like a trick that she like had like a trick of the light, that she had powers or something like that. Also, the Scarlet Guard, this is also kind of another biggish spoiler. The Scarlet Guard, which is the resistance group in this book, just allows in a prince to join their resistance group. That seems very unrealistic. Like, I don't understand why they would just let him join the resistance group. He's a silver and he's royalty. And the last plot hole that I found kind of was weird was Alara could read minds. That's her power. She can read and like kind of like say things into your mind. And Mare just assumed that, oh, she's not going to know that I'm literally plotting to like resist against the entire silvers. She can read my mind, but she's not going to know. That maybe it was just showing Mare's dumb, but that doesn't make sense to me. The last thing that I did kind of enjoy was the complexity of the relationships in terms of like betrayal and sides and morally right versus wrong. I thought it was interesting to see how complicated the silver world really was. This point kind of works like in tandem with enjoying many of the characters, but I thought that many of the characters being kind of like morally gray, and also like who betrayed who for what reason, that was interesting, and I think that's what allowed me to keep reading the book through like what I didn't like about it. So that was a good aspect of it. So overall, I did not enjoy this book very much. I rated it maybe 2.25 out of 5, 2.5, I guess, out of 5 stars. And I would say that here's my thing is, if you haven't read Hunger Games and The Selection and or Divergent, and you're just unfamiliar with dystopian books in general, this might be like an okay dystopian book to start with. But if you're like an avid reader that loves dystopians, I wouldn't 100% completely recommend this book, because it contains so many themes that have already been exhausted in like so many other dystopian books. So that's my recommendations. So that will be the end of my book review. If you like this video, then like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and happy reading. That was good. There we go.